On the morning of September 25th at 8:44 a.m., the Chinese Communist Party's rocket force launched an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, capable of carrying a nuclear warhead into the Pacific Ocean. Later, China's Ministry of National Defense announced the successful launch of an ICBM carrying a training dummy warhead, which accurately landed in a designated area. They emphasized that this launch was part of annual military training and was not aimed at any specific country or target. Japan's military quickly assessed the situation, stating that after the missile launch, it split into two parts in the water around Luzon Island, with the warhead eventually falling in the open sea near Hawaii. The missile launch drew significant attention from the U.S., Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, with many believing the missile to be the Dongfeng 41, a type not seen in over 44 years. It's worth noting that China rarely tests ICBMs in international waters, usually opting for remote areas such as Xinjiang or the Bohai Sea. The last time there was such a launch was May 1980, when China launched a Dongfeng 5 into the South Pacific. In what seemed to be a response, on the same day that China launched its missile, Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Forces destroyer Sazanami passed through the Taiwan Strait alongside Australian and New Zealand warships, demonstrating their commitment to maintaining freedom of navigation. This marked the first time a Japanese destroyer had traversed the Taiwan Strait, as Japan had previously avoided sending its naval vessels through this area. Despite China's claim that the launch was not targeted at any specific country, experts, including Masuda Masayuki, the director of the Asia and Africa Studies Department at Japan's National Institute for Defense Studies, believe the missile launch was intended to showcase China's nuclear missile capabilities. Masuda pointed out that the missile's full range covers the U.S. mainland, hinting at a strong message of deterrence towards the U.S. Masuda, a specialist in Chinese studies, added that China first revealed the Dongfeng 41 5 years ago, signaling its readiness for operational deployment. During the ICBM launch, there was an unusual surge of Chinese military activity over Taiwan, with 72 Chinese aircraft and 8 ships detected in the region over the course of 30 hours, the highest number in recent months. According to Voice of America, former U.S. defense official Drew Thompson analyzed the timing of the missile launch, coinciding with the United Nations General Assembly in New York. He suggested this was a clear message to the international community that China's patience has limits, and it is ready to use its most powerful weapons to deter adversaries, or potentially punish them if deterrence fails. On September 26, Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council released a statement condemning China's ICBM test, calling it a dangerous act that seriously threatens regional security. They criticized China for not providing prior notice about the missile's trajectory or impact area, labeling this as a reckless display of military force aimed at heightening tensions and undermining regional peace and stability. With China's expanding military presence in the Pacific and the support from Russia, security tensions in the region are rising every year. The potential for military conflict is growing, with Japan, home to U.S. military bases, particularly at risk. 2 days prior, on September 23rd, the Japanese government reported that a Russian anti-submarine aircraft had violated Japan's airspace near the northernmost main island of Hokkaido. This happened 3 times between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. This prompted Japan's Air Self-Defense Force to scramble its fighter jets, marking the first time they used flares to warn off the Russian aircraft. Reports indicated that the Russian Il-38 anti-submarine plane violated Japan's airspace 3 times during its 5-hour flight over Rabun Island. After its first 2 violations, Japan issued radio warnings, but when the plane entered Japanese airspace for the 3rd time, Japan quickly deployed multiple F-15 and F-35 fighter jets. After the Russian aircraft ignored the warnings, Japanese jets fired flares as a final warning. According to photos released by Japan's self-defense forces, the bomb bay doors of the Russian anti-submarine aircraft were open during its incursion. Japan's defense minister, Minoru Kihara, expressed deep regret over the violation of Japan's airspace. Japan has lodged a strong protest with Russia through diplomatic channels, requesting preventative measures to avoid future incidents. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, who is currently visiting the U.S., instructed the military to respond calmly and decisively to the incursion. He emphasized that Japan would work closely with the U.S. and other relevant parties to provide timely and accurate information to the public and international community. This incident marks the 44th time that a Russian aircraft has violated Japanese airspace. However, this is the first time a military aircraft has done so since 2019. Luzon Island, where Japan's ground self-defense force has a base, remains strategically important for the defense of Japan's northern border. While Japan has shifted its focus to the southwest due to tensions in the Taiwan Strait and China's military buildup, the island continues to play a crucial role in northern defense. In late August, a Chinese military aircraft also violated Japanese airspace for the first time. On the morning of August 26, a Chinese Y-9 reconnaissance aircraft briefly entered Japanese airspace near Nagasaki Prefecture. In response, Japan scrambled fighter jets, warning the Chinese aircraft to leave the area. While Chinese aircraft frequently operate in international airspace near Japan, this marked the first confirmed instance of a Chinese military aircraft entering Japanese airspace. Over the past 2 decades, Japan has faced an increasing number of foreign aircraft intrusions. Last year, Japan's self-defense forces scrambled jets 669 times to intercept foreign aircraft, 479 of which were in response to Chinese aircraft. In response to the August airspace violation, Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs summoned a representative from the Chinese embassy that evening, urging them to prevent future incidents. Military analysts believe that the Chinese military airspace violation was likely a signal challenging Japan's territorial boundaries. China claims control over a large portion of the continental shelf in the East China Sea, which extends near Japan's Danjo Islands. The Chinese aircraft was detected near this area. In the past, Chinese aircraft often entered Japanese airspace near the Senkaku Islands, referred to as Diaoyu Islands by China. Beijing asserts sovereignty over these islands. This latest incursion, closer to Japan's mainland, has heightened Japanese concerns over the seriousness of the situation, escalating tensions between China and Japan. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has repeatedly stated that the Diaoyu Islands and their surrounding waters are inherently Chinese territory and under Chinese jurisdiction. Regarding the Russia anti-submarine aircraft's violation of Japanese airspace, Yuko Koizumi, an associate professor at the University of Tokyo's Advanced Science and Technology Research Center, suggested that the incident may be linked to the ongoing Sino-Russian joint maritime patrols. He commented, "It seems they're conducting anti-submarine exercises." On September 16th, Russia's Ministry of Defense released footage of joint exercises between Russia's Pacific Fleet and the Chinese Navy in the Sea of Japan. It was part of the Ocean 2024 drills. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported that over 15 Russian vessels, including the flagship cruiser Varyag, participated in the drills, which featured missile and artillery firing exercises. Ocean 2024 is the largest naval exercise in Russian history, spanning from the Pacific to the Barents Sea, the Baltic Sea, and the Eastern Mediterranean. According to official Russian figures, the exercise involved 400 vessels, 125 aircraft, and 90,000 personnel. A spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Defense noted that, during the Sino-Russian joint drills, 8 Russian military aircraft and 4 warships approached Alaska, including 2 submarines. However, no aircraft entered U.S. airspace. In preparation for any unforeseen events, the U.S. military has relocated approximately 130 soldiers and mobile rocket launchers to a desolate island in Alaska's western Aleutian Islands, where they maintain an Air Force base constructed during World War II. Additionally, the U.S. has deployed a missile destroyer and a Coast Guard vessel to the waters off western Alaska. In July, 2 Russian Tu-95 bombers and 2 Chinese H-6 bombers approached U.S. airspace, prompting the U.S. to scramble F-16 and F-35 fighter jets, along with Canadian CF-18s and other support aircraft. Following the conclusion of recent Sino-Russian military exercises, on September 22nd, China and Russia conducted their fifth joint naval patrol. A total of 9 warships passed through the Soya Strait between Russia and Japan's Hokkaido, entering the Pacific Ocean. In response to the large joint patrol fleet, Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force deployed 3 warships and multiple maritime patrol aircraft to carry out early warning and surveillance tasks, as well as to gather intelligence. Around the same time, U.S. President Joe Biden hosted the leaders of Australia, India, and Japan at a Quad meeting in his hometown. During the meeting, President Biden remarked, "China continues to behave aggressively, testing this all across the region, and it's true in the South China Sea, the East China Sea, South China, South Asia, and the Taiwan Strait." Many believe Biden's statement confirms that the Quad meeting was aimed at addressing the CCP's actions. The situation in Japan's waters has been busy recently, with frequent activities from both the joint Sino-Russian patrols and Chinese warships. On September 18th, China's aircraft carrier Liaoning, escorted by 2 destroyers, sailed south from the northwest of the Senkaku Islands, passing between Yonaguni and Iriomote Islands through Japan's contiguous zone, entering the Pacific Ocean. This was the first time Japan confirmed the presence of a Chinese aircraft carrier navigating through its contiguous zone. Under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, territorial waters extend 12 nautical miles from a country's baseline, and the contiguous zone extends another 12 nautical miles beyond that. According to these regulations, Japan can exercise some control in this area. After the Liaoning entered the contiguous zone, the Japanese government issued a public statement emphasizing that such actions were completely unacceptable and lodged a protest with the Chinese government. NHK reported that Japan's Ministry of Defense analyzed the purpose of the Chinese warship's navigation and conducted continuous monitoring. Experts analyzing China's naval actions believe the CCP is attempting to pressure Japan into rethinking its support for Taiwan, expressing dissatisfaction with the growing U.S.-Japan cooperation, and trying to involve Russia's influence in northeast China. Director of Taiwan's Institute for National Defense and Security Research, Su Ziyun, stated that Japan's increasing military cooperation with its allies could be one of the reasons China is demonstrating its military strength towards Japan. While the Liaoning was at sea, Chinese media reported that the aircraft carrier Fujian had recently left Shanghai's Jiangnan shipyard for another round of sea trials. Additionally, the Shandong carrier fleet was active in the South China Sea. This means that around September 18th, all 3 of China's aircraft carriers were simultaneously at sea, each accompanied by multiple destroyers and a supply ship, with possible submarines operating underwater as well. Commentators have noted that China's carrier operations signify the Chinese Navy's transition from a regional force focused on the first island chain to a global navy capable of reaching the second island chain, including Guam and the Mariana Islands, and conducting operations worldwide. However, U.S. media emphasized that despite China's growing fleet of aircraft carriers, they still remain outmatched by the U.S. Navy, which operates 11 nuclear-powered supercarriers. In response to the frequent military displays by China and Russia, on September 18th, U.S. Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Lisa Franchetti released the 2024 Navigation Plan, which, for the first time, outlines the U.S. Navy's strategic goal of being prepared for a potential conflict with the CCP by 2027. According to a report by Nikkei Asia, on September 23rd, the U.S. Navy destroyer USS Preble, equipped with the latest laser weapon system, Helios, departed from San Diego en route to Yokosuka, Japan. A U.S. Navy spokesperson stated that the USS Preble is the only one among the Navy's 73 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers equipped with a high-energy laser weapon, which can be used to shoot down drones and missiles. In recent years, the high cost of air defense missiles has been a hot topic in defense circles. Low-cost drones have been widely used on the battlefield in Ukraine and in attacks on commercial and military vessels in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, forcing Western forces to use multi-million-dollar surface-to-air missiles to destroy these inexpensive drones. After Lockheed Martin successfully developed and integrated the Helios system, laser weapons, known for their powerful destructive capabilities and rapid response, have transitioned from science fiction into reality. In 2022, the U.S. Navy successfully tested a high-energy laser system against cruise missile targets and installed the system on the USS Preble destroyer. These ship-based lasers, or directed energy weapons, are expected to play a critical role in future U.S. conflicts, particularly against large numbers of drones and anti-ship missiles. An August report by the U.S. Congressional Research Service highlighted that ship-based lasers draw power directly from the ship's electrical system, allowing for unlimited repeat firings. Each shot is estimated to cost less than $10, mostly covering the fuel required to generate electricity. The report stressed that this low-cost method of destroying drones and missiles is necessary when countering the CCP, as China possesses a large number of drones and anti-ship missiles. The U.S. Navy's 2024 navigation plan pointed out that China's defense industry is in a wartime state, with the Chinese Navy controlling the world's largest shipbuilding capacity. The Helios laser weapon is capable of precision strikes, with its highly concentrated energy beam capable of penetrating targets with great destructive force and high accuracy. It is effective at targeting vulnerable parts of enemy equipment. The U.S. Congressional Research Service describes Helios as a 60-kilowatt class high-energy laser, which could potentially grow to 150 kilowatts. This laser can penetrate drones, low-flying aircraft, and, in some cases, incoming missiles. Retired Rear Admiral Mike Studeman, former commander of the Office of Naval Intelligence and now a national security researcher at MITRE, told Japanese media that any military capable of utilizing and deploying such technologies will have a significant advantage because they can destroy large number of lethal weapons as efficiently and cheaply as possible. The USS Preble will be deployed alongside 12 other U.S. warships at Yokosuka, including the aircraft carrier USS George Washington, which is expected to arrive mid-November carrying advanced F-35C fighter jets. The growing military cooperation between China and Russia has pushed the U.S. to accelerate its defensive deployments in the Pacific and strengthen alliances to counter the CCP. Professor Wang Hongren from the Department of Political Science at Taiwan's National Chung Kung University believes China is attempting to bring Russian influence into Northeast Asia, positioning Russia to collaborate with China in any future conflicts on the Korean Peninsula or across the Taiwan Strait. This would help alleviate pressure on China's military from U.S. Japan, U.S. Korea, U.S. Philippines, or U.S. Taiwan forces. Director of Taiwan's Institute for National Defense and Security Research, Su Ziyun, added that Russia's difficulties in its war in Ukraine have increased its need for Chinese support, while China faces a soft containment by democratic alliances in the Pacific and thus also requires Russian backing. However, public opinion generally views Xi Jinping's ambitions as overreaching, with many believing that aligning with Russia, especially given Vladimir Putin's own vulnerabilities, offers little more than symbolic value. The actual military impact of this alliance is expected to be quite limited.